Hare Krishna. So I welcome you all to this fourth session of the 5 potent forms of the devotional service. We have till now covered the first 3, the first one being the deity worship, the second one worshipping Tulasi Maharani, because they wanted to see a practical version, what we can do at our level about Mathurā-vāsa, because currently we're not staying in a dham. So wherever we worship Tulasi Maharani is a dham. So we try to learn some glories of worshipping Tulasi Rani in the second session. In the third session, we have covered the last session, the glories of the holy name, Harinam. So today is a very beautiful and juicy topic, the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So I have 2 opposite feelings right now. It's my great fortune to actually speak about the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, which are very sweet, nectarian, and limitless. And at the same time, I'm feeling very unqualified. I have absolutely no qualification to speak about these glories, for they're unlimited and are very transcendental. So it's like, an ordinary sadhaka trying to speak about the glories of these transcendental subject matters related to Lord Kṛṣṇa is like an ordinary sparrow, not trying to fly to cover the whole sky. Now, how much can a small sparrow do it? So I'm like that sparrow, or rather a crow. And the glories of Bhagavatam are like the limitless sky. Who can cover it? Only great birds like the Garuda or probably the swan of Lord Brahma. They can do it. They are like the great pure devotees of the Lord. So I'm like this ordinary sparrow, but for my purification and as my service to all wonderful Vaishnavas who have taken your valuable time out to eagerly hear about the glories of the process of devotional service. So as my service to you, I'll try to speak and repeat what I have heard from my spiritual teachers. And I hope this will bring joy to your heart. So, so today's session, I will just probably speak about it in 3 different sections. During the first section, I will try to speak something about the origin of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, how it has originated. In the second part, I will cover more about the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And during the third part, I will try to share something about some strategies to actually relish Bhagavatam. Okay, what we can do practically at our level to get the relish or taste for Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this is how I have divided my presentation. So, so bhakti is performed in 2 ways. Yeah, it is of 2 types. What are those 2 types? Bhakti with nectar or juice, and bhakti without nectar or without any juice. So what is bhakti with nectar and without nectar? So bhakti with nectar is performing devotional service with a taste that is superior to the taste that we derive from our regular smartphones or television shows or movies. So while performing that bhakti, that our taste is superior to these regular ordinary things. Okay, so what is bhakti without nectar? So we are performing the process of devotional service in a very ritualistic way. Yeah, for example, we take our bead bag and we start rolling our beads. And let's say we do not have a taste or a desire to develop the taste. One small distraction, like our phone rings, message. Immediately we stop our chanting there and open to see who, from where I got the message, who sent the message, I should reply to the message. And we see the time flies. Actually, our hand is still in the bead bag and the, on the Japa bead, and we are into the WhatsApp totally. So that is bhakti without taste. So just like a sugar cane, as it is, it looks like a wooden stick, right? But there is a process by which we can extract the juice from that sugar cane stick, right? Similarly, bhakti as a process, if we do not know the technique of deriving the juice out of it, it is simply like that wooden stick of sugar cane, ritualistic. But if we know the art of extracting the juice, then we can relish even at the sadhaka stage. So that is why it is very important to cultivate that genuine taste for the processes of our bhakti, to perform the process efficiently, effectively, and in a blissful way. If we do not actively try to cultivate this taste, it becomes very mechanical, and over a period of time, we lose taste, interest, and we deviate over a long period. So this active cultivation is very, very important. So, so first, how Bhagavatam has originated. The very nature of Kali Yuga is such that neither the culture nor the education that we have grown in gives a natural direction towards spiritual life. Isn't that true? In our schooling systems or in our education system, or the culture that is surrounding us, which is bombarding us with media, with so much of hype. And yesterday I was just hearing to Govind Prabhu that yesterday was Women's Day, right? So who are the leading women of today? Those women who are earning crores of rupees for dancing for some item songs? What about the women who are just not simple teachers who are trying to teach children something? Compare the amount they're earning. Yeah, so the news is that for one item song they paid 3 crores of rupees. This is how much movie stars earn. Yeah, it's not just the money they're earning, and they become leaders of the society. They're the ones who are to inspire the people. So many. And what about the genuine ones who are neither resourceful nor powerful? So it's very important to promote true culture, the Bhagavata culture, first by ourselves understanding it, practicing it, and finally propagating it. So this is a sad situation of Kali Yuga. In Kali Yuga, there are so many deviations and distractions that do not let us to naturally take up to this process of spirituality. And so is our intelligence. That's what is spoken of in Bhagavatam. Manda sumanda matayo manda bhagya upadrita. The people of age of Kali are manda, sumanda. They have less intelligent. Manda bhagya, they're very less fortunate. Manda bhagya upadrita, they're always disturbed. So Veda Vyas, who's a literary incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kṛṣṇa himself, has overseen this pathetic situation of the people of Kali back in the Dwapara Yuga. And out of compassion, he began to compile all the Vedic literature in the form of, in a written format, so that it is passed down in a way that is accessible to everybody. So Veda Vyas, the kind of work he has done, no human being could ever do it. Yeah? That is why he is the literary incarnation of the Supreme Lord himself. It's the work he has done is not humanly. What he has compiled, the 4 Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva. And he has, not only that, he has written 108 Upanishads, and he has compiled the 18 Puranas, and he has written 2 Itihasas, and he has elaborately given the encapsulated form of all these Vedas into the Vedanta Sutras, or the aphorisms. And after compiling this extremely massive work, out of compassion, he was still feeling bad at heart. He was still feeling very unsatiated, unfulfilled, unsatisfied at heart. Yeah. So if you look into the intention of the great souls, they do service based on these great feelings of compassion, not out of competition. Yeah. So this is, and they feel the pain and the suffering of every living entity. And their mission is to uplift them. So we might think What is the difference even if such great souls are suffering? Their suffering is not like the material suffering that we are going through. The suffering which the materialists go through is because their desire for happiness is baffled. Yeah, I want to be happy, but somehow that desire is not satisfied. That's why I'm suffering. That's the materialistic suffering. But the suffering that is undergone by these transcendentalists or the sages or the sadhus is born out of compassion for the living entity, especially out of compassion that the soul is forgetful of his relationship with Supreme Lord Krishna, and thereby he's suffering in this material world. That is the basis of their compassion. Their basis of compassion is the eternal identity of every living entity, not the bodily concept of life. This is a beautiful statement Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur makes, that the tenderness of the heart that a living entity feels for the Lord is called love or bhakti. And the same tenderness of heart, when it is projected to the living entities of this world, it is called compassion. So it is out of this compassion that Vedavyas has compiled this massive Vedic literature. And not just Vedavyas or the great souls, even the Lord himself feels the pain of the living entity. And what is the pain that the living entity is going through? It's that frustration of forgetfulness of one's relationship with Krishna. That is the basis of all suffering. So even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was feeling this pain, and he was sharing with Srila Haridas Thakur. And whenever the Lord descends to this material world, yeah, Sambhavami Yuge Yuge, every time, every yuga that the Lord descends, it is not the Lord descends that, right now it is the time for my descent. I have a scheduled incarnation, so I have to descend, or I have to punish these demons. That's why I have to descend. No, that is not the mood of the Lord. The Lord descends because he feels for every living entity, and he wants to uplift every jiva, like you and me, and bring them back to the happiest position where we can enjoy a life of eternality and bliss. That's the desire of the Lord. And that is why he comes and descends again and again. So Srila Vedavyasa is feeling the same compassion, and that is why he has compiled all these Vedic literature for all of us. Today we are having the access to so many, the Gita, the Bhagavatam, and all the Puranas. How? This is the compassion of Vedavyasa eons ago. If he would not have given us in the written form, I wouldn't have had the access of anything. Would have just been rotting in this dark, deep, dark well of material existence for eternity. And so when he compiled all these, he was still feeling unsatisfied. Well, no, I'm still not satisfied. And that is when Narada Muni comes into the picture. So whenever the disciple is feeling very lost, somehow the spiritual master gets to know it. That is the relationship between the guru and disciple. So somehow he comes into the picture, either personally or through instruction or through some words or through some points we hear in the lecture. Somehow that anxiety or the disturbance of the heart is addressed by the mercy of Guru. So when Vedavyasa is undergoing this kind of an anxiety or dissatisfaction, Narada Muni appears. And he asks him, yes, my dear Vedavyasa, why are you so disappointed after the massive work that you have done? So Vedavyasa then says that I do not know the reason, but there's a beautiful conversation between Vedavyasa and Narada Muni, which appears in the first canto of Bhagavatam. It has to be studied very deeply, which we will do in our Bhagavatam study circle later on. So, and Narada Muni then tells Vedavyasa, so my dear Vedavyasa, till now you have given everything. Yeah, you have given dharma that the living entity should perform and the goal of it, but you have addressed it at different levels of the goal, but you have not given them the real goal, the true goal of all these performances. The true goal is the Supreme Lord himself, and you have not sufficiently glorified him. That is the reason for your dissatisfaction. And immediately Vedavyasa understood where from his dissatisfaction was springing. So immediately he took up the massive work of writing down the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Amalam Puranam. It is the most purest of all Vedic literatures. Yeah. And there's a beautiful statement that is made by Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He said, even if the entire literature of this world is burnt and is lost, entire literature, okay, all the books, everything that is existing, even if it is to be burnt and lost, but if only Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is remaining, then there is nothing much that the world has lost. That is the glory of Bhagavatam. Imagine we have lost all the literature, but if we just have Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, there is nothing much we have lost. That is the glory and position of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So, yeah. So Vedavyas feels that fulfillment when he finally writes Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this Bhagavatam was actually the setting. It was spoken in the Naimisharanya, a place called Naimisharanya. This place is still existing. We can visit actually one of these days. So this Naimisharanya is not an ordinary place. It is called the hub of the universe. Why is it called the hub of the universe? If the universe is compared to a wheel, the axle of the wheel, the central point, that is called the axle. So that is the hub of the universe. That is Naimisharanya. So whatever activity is performed at this place has its impact felt throughout the universe. It's a very, very powerful place. Naimisharanya. So this is the place where Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam has been spoken by Suta Goswami to the sages of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka Rishi. So what was he reciting? He was reciting the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam that he has heard from Shukadev Goswami. So who is Shukadev Goswami? So Shukadev Goswami is the son of sage Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva, after compiling the Bhagavad, he was in a trance sitting under the tree called Badarayana. Okay, and he was meditating the glories of the Supreme Lord. And he felt a deep desire in his heart that he should have a son who will propagate the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam throughout the world. And that's how he actually attains a son, Shukadev Goswami, in the womb of his beloved wife. But the strange part is, Shukadev Goswami is Brahman realized in the womb itself. And he was so immersed in his meditation, in the trance of Brahman, that he didn't come out of his mother's womb till 12 years. He was simply in that ecstasy of Brahman in the womb of his mother. So he didn't bother to come out of the womb. What will I do with this world? Imagine 12 years. That time there was no cesarean or C-section. How many ever years the child stays in the womb the mother carries? Yes, for 12 years he remained in the womb of his mother. So 12 years, Vyasadeva started narrating the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And when Shukadev Goswami started hearing these glories, he immediately came out. And he was eager to hear more and to propagate these glories. That was the purpose he understood, and he took birth. So at the same time, Parikshit Maharaj, who was the emperor of this whole world, who was ruling the world at that time, he was subjected to a curse by a Brahmana called Shringi, for a very insignificant offense. And he was cursed to die within 7 days. So when he received this curse, he, being a very great devotee of the Lord, being the descendant of the Pandavas, he did not retaliate. He took it as the Lord's mercy, and he went to the banks of the Ganga, and he sat down to spend the 7 days in absolute attention to hear the glories of Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa. So it is to that place that Shukadev Goswami comes walking, and he was totally naked. He did not wear any clothes. And this nudity is not something born out of renunciation, but it was just that he was so absorbed in the trance of reminiscing the glories of the Supreme Lord that he didn't bother to wear anything. And it was so pure that even some women who were bathing in the without clothes in their in the rivers, they didn't bother to cover themselves. That was the purity of Shukadeva Goswami. They didn't feel shy that some man is going. So as Shukadeva Goswami, he goes and he meets Parikshit Maharaj, and that is where he starts narrating. And Shukadeva Goswami was such a pure devotee. He was just 12-year-old, and to hear these narrations, sages who were present, who are thousands and thousands of years old, who have been existing on the earth since the time of Ramayana, since the beginning of the Dwapar Yuga, from where all they have just assembled, because they were all so eager to hear from Shukadeva Goswami. Why Shukadeva Goswami is very, very special. Why he is special, I will talk about that later. So also none other than his own father, Vyasadeva, came and to hear from him. And Narada Muni, who is the, whose grand disciple he is, even he came to hear from Shukadeva Goswami. And all as I said, the sages who have been living from different yugas, they all just came to assemble to hear the narrations of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from Shukadeva Goswami. So this is the qualification to hear and understand Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, the eagerness. The eagerness is the hunger. In Ayurveda, they say, for any problem that you have in the body, the root is the digestion. Yeah. The theory is that unless you have a hunger, you cannot digest the food that you're eating. And without hunger, if you eat, food remains undigested, and that becomes poisonous. So similarly, spiritual knowledge, when it is taken, one should have the hunger. Without that hunger, when you take in, it remains in unrealized knowledge, that it remains as just a mere information. But when you receive the spiritual knowledge with adequate hunger to know and understand Kṛṣṇa, that same knowledge become realizations. And that's how we become closer to divinity. So cultivating this hunger is also a very, very important feature in actually understanding spiritual subject matters. So this is how Shukadeva Goswami has started narrating, and this was heard by Suta Goswami, and Suta Goswami has further started narrating Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam to the sages of Naimisharanya. So the sages of Naimisharanya ask very important questions. Yeah, what are the important questions? They ask 6 questions. They ask, what is the duty of a dying person? They ask, what is the essence of all religions? Yeah, and they ask, where has dharma taken shelter after after Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, left this world? So on and so forth. They ask these very, very important questions. And then Suta Goswami starts answering all these questions and beautifully, the 2nd chapter and the 3rd chapter, and goes on. So, we have been learning Bhagavad Gita. So Gita is actually, it's the word spoken by Kṛṣṇa. And Bhagavatam is all about the glories of Kṛṣṇa. It's about Kṛṣṇa. So the same, in Gita, what Kṛṣṇa says, the essence of Gita is the final verse, 18.66, where Kṛṣṇa says, Sarva dharman parityajya. Abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. And how do you do this? Man mana bhava madbhakto. Always think of me, surrender unto me. Yeah. Always madbhakto, and become my devotee and offer your homage unto me. In this way, you will definitely come to me without fail. Yeah. This is what is the conclusion of Gita. And Bhagavatam is all about those great devotees who have personified this particular verse of Man mana bhava madbhakto through their very lives. Yeah, you see Dhruva Maharaj, Ambarish Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, all these great souls who are all great devotees of the Lord, the gopis, Yashoda Mai, all of them, Uddhava, yeah, they're all great devotees, the Nagapatnis, the Dvijapatnis, all of them are such amazing, they're pure devotees. They have exhibited that unalloyed devotion in their lives, through their very lives. So, and also in practically in this age of Kali, how to actually practice this process. To give this, Krishna himself has come as Lord Chaitanya, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to exemplify the principles of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So there are two Bhagavatams. There is book Bhagavat and there's a person Bhagavat. Book Bhagavat is the Bhagavatam in the form of the book. Person Bhagavatam is one who has absorbed the instructions of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam through one's life, who is living it and who is propagating it through one's own example. That is person Bhagavatam. So if we are serving a person Bhagavatam, it is equivalent to reading the book Bhagavatam. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the topmost exponent of Bhagavatam. So he is the person Bhagavatam himself. So we see in the Chaitanya Charitamrita that there was one personality. His name was Devanand Pandit. He was a great scholar of Bhagavat. He could recite any verse with the best of pronunciation, with the best of Sanskrit. He could just recite Bhagavatam in a very, very scholarly way and give different interpretations. But Mahaprabhu was very displeased with him because Bhagavatam is never to be approached with a scholarly mood. And this was what he was trying to do. And this was what he was trying to give all his students. He was in the position of a teacher. More important, if you're in the position of a teacher, you have to be all the more careful. This was Devanand Pandit, who was such a Bhagavat scholar, who was giving all these scholarly interpretations of Bhagavatam to a group of his students. And Mahaprabhu was highly displeased. He said that he's such an offender of Bhagavatam and I never like to see his face. So this was how, many years passed on. And, somehow, by his good fortune, Devanand Pandit, he could get to serve one of the associate of Mahaprabhu. This is a glory of service to a devotee. Yeah, there was a great devotee called Vakreshwar Pandit. He was very adept at dancing in the Sankirtan of the Lord. So whenever he used to dance in the Sankirtan of the Lord, what Devanand Pandit used to do is he used to clear the way for him so that he could dance nicely. So this was the service he did to Vakreshwar Pandit. So with this service, see how potent service is. This small service that he did, with the purity of heart, it made him realize that I could not access the real essence of Bhagavatam till date. So this is the mercy that he got. When he understood that he could not access the real essence of Bhagavatam, and how did he get this mercy? Because Mahaprabhu was very pleased with this attitude of his service to a devotee. So he approached Mahaprabhu and, in a very piteous way, he cried out, he begged for forgiveness for all his offenses, for being so proud of his scholarliness. And he said that I do not know anything of Bhagavatam, though I have been reciting about it for so long. Can you please enlighten me? How do I access the true essence of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Mahaprabhu, being pleased with his repentance, he tells him something so beautiful. And Mahaprabhu says that Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, every verse of it, every word of it, every syllable of it speaks and glorifies one aspect and only one aspect. And what is it? Pure devotional service to Supreme Lord Kṛṣṇa. Every syllable is pregnant with that very essence of pure devotional service to Kṛṣṇa. And any narration of Bhagavatam, any recitation of Bhagavatam should be done with this mood and understanding by the speaker. And if there is any other motivation attached to it, then you have missed the point. This is what he explains, Devanand Pandit. And Devanand Pandit then realizes his folly. So this is how Mahaprabhu has, he loved Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam so much. Every day, actually in the Navadvip, our Murari Gupta, who's incarnation of Hanuman, he used to recite Bhagavatam every day at his home. And Mahaprabhu was so pleased when he used to walk the streets of Navadvip, when he used to hear that Murari Gupta is reciting Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. One day he was reciting that canto, the third canto, where the Lord has taken the avatar of the boar, that is the Varaha avatar. Mahaprabhu was so pleased, so ecstatic that he went to the house of Murari Gupta and he has showed his incarnation of Varaha Dev in front of his eyes. Imagine you're reading Bhagavatam and all of a sudden you look in front of you and there is the incarnation of Varaha Dev standing right in front of you. This is how Mahaprabhu was so pleased when somebody is reading Bhagavatam with such devotion that he manifested his incarnation in front of him. So Mahaprabhu himself, during his pastimes in Puri, he used to be with Gadadhar Pandit. Gadadhar Pandit is none other than Srimati Radharani herself. So he used to sit with Gadadhar Pandit and he used to read Bhagavatam days and over again. Dhruva Charita, Prahlad Charita, again and again, hundreds and hundreds of times they used to read and relish these pastimes with such ecstasy. Sometimes when we hear something, and after some days we hear the same thing, we have a syndrome called I have already heard it before. If we get this feeling that I have heard this before, that means we have never really heard it. We have just taken down some information. But Bhagavatam is such that it's transcendental literature. The more number of times you hear it, and you want to hear it more again and again, that means you have really heard it. But if you feel that I have already heard it before, that means you have just taken some information. This is the difference between hearing, that is Shravanam, and taking in some information. So this is how Mahaprabhu used to relish reading Bhagavatam with Gadadhar Pandit at this beautiful place called Tota Gopinath. So much so when they were reading, profuse tears used to start flowing from their eyes, and the whole literature used to be drenched in their tears. At a later date, after Mahaprabhu actually winds his pastimes, Gadadhar Pandit was alone, and Srinivasacharya comes all the way from Vrindavan for a copy of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Right now we get Bhagavatam anywhere by just clicking and placing an order. You get Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam door delivered. This is the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. But earlier, just 500 years ago, to get one copy of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, people used to travel on foot right from Vrindavan, whereas Vrindavan, Uttar Pradesh, to Jagannath Puri, means Orissa. All the way they used to walk to get one copy of Bhagavatam. So Srinivasacharya came all the way to Gadadhar Pandit to request for one copy of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So Gadadhar Pandit brings the copy of Bhagavatam he has, but unfortunately, all the written format gets drained away because of their tears of love they shed by hearing and reciting Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this is the position of Bhagavat, full of nectarial pastimes of the Lord. In fact, it is the literary incarnation of Kṛṣṇa. It is, there's a beautiful verse which speaks about when Kṛṣṇa has left this world, after winding up his pastimes in Dwaraka, when he left towards the end of Kali Yuga. So along with him, all the dharma, and that means the religion and the knowledge, dharma jnanadi, all these great aspects have left along with him. And because of which the whole place, the whole world is just swallowed in darkness. The Supreme has left this world, the whole world was filled with darkness. But Kṛṣṇa, out of his causeless mercy, left behind Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It said like the sun of Lord Kṛṣṇa has set and the moon of Bhagavatam has rose to give light to the humanity. So that is our only hope in this age where there is no physical presence of the Supreme Lord. So, and this was the same Bhagavatam that Srila Prabhupada has so painstakingly translated all through his life. When he was staying at the rooms in Sri Radha Damodar temple at Vrindavan, with such immersion and absorption that Prabhupada has translated the verses of Bhagavatam into English. People who were staying at Radha Damodar temple later, they used to tell the disciples, after many years when they met the disciples of Prabhupada, they used to see Swami Maharaj, Prabhupada. He was so immersed day in and day out. He used to be just absorbed in just translating Bhagavatam and chanting. Only these two things. He used to simply come to the deities to take the darshan. And later he was just always chanting, praying, and writing the translations of Bhagavatam. And one devotee, when they asked Prabhupada, Swami Maharaj, they all knew that Prabhupada was traveling to the west, right? This place called Advaita Bhavan. That devotee asked Prabhupada, so I heard you're traveling to the west. It's a very dangerous place. Then you know what was Prabhupada's answer? Prabhupada said, I am not traveling to the west. Bhagavatam is traveling to the west. And I'm just accompanying and assisting. This was Prabhupada's mood. Yeah. So we all treat Bhagavatam as a book, but actual understanding of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is Kṛṣṇa himself. There's a beautiful description in Padma Purana that the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa are considered as a first canto, like that. It goes, the 10th canto is his beautiful lotus face. Yeah, and the Rasa Panchagraha, the Rasa Leela part is the beautiful smile of Lord Kṛṣṇa. So the Bhagavatam is actually the person Kṛṣṇa. Some people actually truly worship Bhagavatam with flowers and incense, just like we worship the deity of Kṛṣṇa. That is the actual understanding of Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada had this understanding. He said, I am not traveling to the west. Bhagavatam is traveling. I'm just accompanying. This is the beauty of, Bhagavatam. So this is how, Prabhupada has written the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and, with such immersion, with such absorption. So how did Prabhupada write Bhagavatam? If any of you have started reading Bhagavatam, does anybody know what is there in the introduction of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? What is written in the introduction to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Yes, Muskan Agarwal. Very wonderful, about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Exactly. Yes. The entire introduction to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's life, his life and his teachings. Very elaborately, Prabhupada writes. Because by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we can truly understand the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So in that life and teachings, there's one beautiful, there are many, the birth of Mahaprabhu, later on how he has taken sannyas, how he's defeated various scholars like Keshav Kashmiri, how he's uplifted Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya from his impersonal philosophical conception to a devotee, and later on his interaction with various devotees at Jagannath Puri, and his teachings to Sanatan Goswami, his teachings to Rupa Goswami. All these are so beautifully, in a very concise way, Prabhupada presents in the introduction to Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And later, he writes about the discussion between Ramananda Rai and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at River Godavari, at Kovur. Yeah, this beautiful discussion. It's a very, very amazing discussion. Actually, there's a book just based on this discussion. It's called The Ultimate Goal of Life. I don't know if you can get access to this book, very rarely available. The Ultimate Goal of Life. Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Raya that, my dear Ramananda Rai, please tell me, what is the ultimate goal of life? So Ramananda Rai is he's actually Vishaka Sakhi in the Krishna Leela. So he feels himself very humble and he says, no, my dear Lord, you know everything, but you're just trying to extract the answer from me. So he says, the ultimate goal of life is to execute the Varnashram Dharma and thereby attain transcendence and attain Vishnu. Then Mahaprabhu says, this is very superficial and external. He said, yehi bahya. This is a very superficial understanding of philosophy. So I was taken aback. I thought this was the ultimate goal of life. So he says, no. Varnashram dharma is important. It is a means by which you attain, but it is the basis, but it is in itself not sufficient to attain transcendence. Yeah, there's a slight difference between the both. So he says, this is very superficial understanding. This is very external. Yehi bahya. Tell me something higher than this. Then Ramananda Rai says, Yad karoshi yad ashnasi, yad juhosi dadasi, yad tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do it as an offering to Kṛṣṇa. This is the ultimate goal of life. And Mahaprabhu was not pleased with that also. He said, this is also external. Yehi bahya. So, it is superior than Varnashrama, because Varnashrama dharma can sometimes be followed with a very impersonal conception. That means I will do my duties, of my Varna. I will do my duties of ashrama without a conception of God. Some people do it, in fact. So there is no personal understanding of God in this process of simply executing Varnashrama dharma. So at least superior than that is whatever you do it as an offering to the Supreme Lord. Mahaprabhu says, fine, but go higher. He says, Yahi Bhakya, this is also external, go higher than this. Then Ramananda Rai starts quoting other aspects of the scripture. Then one should actually, give up their duties and simply execute devotional service. Then Mahaprabhu does not agree for that, because he never recommended a person to abruptly, give away their social position and get into full-fledged devotional practices. Mahaprabhu never agreed with that. There's a beautiful pastime of Kurma Brahman. There is a Kurma Kshetra near Vizag. If anybody has visited, somebody is, I think Kavya stays in Vizag. No? There is a place called Kurma Kshetra. So there's a beautiful deity of Kurma Dev over there. So at that, Mahaprabhu personally visited that place. And in that place, there was a Brahmana. So he was a great devotee of the Lord. He was always absorbed in hearing Krishna Katha. So when Mahaprabhu actually came to Kurma Kshetra, he knew what was the true identity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He knew him to be the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when he visited this Kurma Brahman said, my dear Lord, I just want to give up my family. I want to give up everything, and I just want to follow you for the rest of my life, simply singing the glories of Lord Hari. Then Mahaprabhu says, no, you have to be situated in your own position and then continue to chant the names of Lord Hari. And this is how you will attain perfection. So this was the instruction to that Kurma Brahman. So this is how, Mahaprabhu did not agree to that, to what Ramananda Rai said, quoted as the ultimate goal of life. Then he said, go higher than that. Then Ramananda Rai then quotes the verse, this beautiful verse from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10th canto. Jnane prayasa udapasya namantaiva jivanti sanmukhartam bhavadiya varta sthane stita shruti-katam tanuvan manobhir yek prayasa jita-jito asitais trilokyam. Jnane prayasa udapasya, that means just give up this false endeavor to run after knowledge to understand the Supreme Lord. Yeah. Jnane prayasa udapasya namantaiva jivanti sanmukhartam. Just sit, be in whichever position you are in. Yeah, sthane sthita shruti-katam. Just be in whichever position you are in and keep hearing the narrations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and serve with your tanuvan manobhir. Tanu with your body, vak with your words, and with your deeds and with your mind. Yeah, just worship the Supreme Lord by hearing his glories. This is what is the verse quoted by Ramananda Rai. So at this time, Mahaprabhu was pleased. He said, yes, what you said is correct. It's perfect. And he says, but still go higher. So that's when, Ramananda Rai gets into the very Rasik description of the higher levels of bhakti. So that we will discuss some other time. We cannot discuss that now. But this is what Mahaprabhu has given as a stamp that, yes, this is perfect understanding. That in whichever social position we are in, be it you're a student, you're a housewife, or you're a mother, or you're a daughter, or whichever social position you're in, be in that position. But that, being in that position, hear about the glories of Kṛṣṇa. And the glories of Kṛṣṇa are so beautiful. Kṛṣṇa Katha is such an amazing ecstasy if you can actually taste it. There's a beautiful verse by Srila Rupa Goswami. It says, Aho aho bhirna kalir vidhuyate sādhu-saṅga madhuram pade pade dine dine chandana chandra shītale yasho yashodatanayasya gīyate. So Rupa Goswami is saying, Aho aho bhirna kalir vidhuyate. This bad impact of Kali is not felt. How it is not felt? Sudha-sudhara madhuram pade pade. Just hear the ever flowing nectar of the sweet pastimes of Yashoda Tanayasya Gīyate, of the darling son of Mother Yashoda. Dine dine chandana chandra shītale. That means, in this blazing fire of Kali, when it's like so heat, the heat of it is just exasperating. The narrations of Lord Sri Hari are, like applying chandan, so cooling, so soothing to the soul. That is the sweetness of the pastimes of Kṛṣṇa. They heard from the right source. And when heard, the effects of Kali are cancelled out. Now all the effects of Kali, which bring so much of tapatraya, Śrīmad-Bhāgavate Mahamuni-krite, kimva parairishvaran. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmat-saranam satam. Vedyam vatstam matra vastu shivadam tapatrayon moolanam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is tapatrayon moolanam. All the tapatrayas, the adhyatmika, the bhautika, the daivika, all these kleshas, or the tapas that, which really fry out the living entity, are unmūlana. They're all wiped away by hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. We still didn't enter into the glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So this is the beauty of narrations of Kṛṣṇa Katha. Yeah, it's like, so this is the nectar of glorification of Lord Hari. So in the third chapter, first canto and first chapter, third verse of Bhagavatam, it speaks about this, what is the glory of Bhagavatam? Nigama-kalpataror galitam phalam. Yeah, Nigama-kalpataror galitam phalam. Sukha-mukhad. I've put the poster. How many of you could understand that poster that I have posted about Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? Can anybody tell what the poster meant? Nigama-kalpataror galitam phalam sukha-mukhadam rita-dravash samyutam pibatat bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. So what is the poster that I have sent? Anybody could understand? I said glories of Bhagavatam, and why there is Radharani there?
So Brother Kṛṣṇa is the character of Srimati Radharani.
Yeah, who said that? Srinija. Yes, perfect. Perfect. Shukadev Goswami, whose glory is Shuka Mukhad Amrita Dravash Samyutam. Shuka Mukhad means from the beautiful Mukha, from the mouth of Shukadev Goswami. And who is Shukadev Goswami? He's actually the parrot in the hands of Srimati Radharani in the spiritual world. He has incarnated as Shukadev Goswami. So Nigama Kalpataror. What is Nigama Kalpataror? Nigama means Vedas. And Kalpataru means desire tree. So this is the most ripened fruit of Vedic. And Galitam Phalam. Galitam Phalam means it's the ripened fruit of all Vedic wisdom. What? Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It is really the ripened fruit. And why it is a ripened fruit? Because it consists of the narrations of Lord Hari. Yeah, the narrations of Lord Hari, and especially when Vyasadeva wanted to, he was feeling dissatisfied and he gave the entire Bhagavatam. And when he gave the Bhagavatam, entire Bhagavatam, the essence actually, the topmost rasa, the most ripened juice is actually in the 10th canto. Because Dhruva Charita and Prahlad Charita and about Ambarish Maharaj, he has also mentioned it elsewhere. But this amazing, very intimate pastimes of Kṛṣṇa, like especially the 5 songs of separation, the Gopi Geet, the Brahmar Geet, the Venu Geet, the Viraha Geet, the Yugala Geet. There are 5 Geetas, which are very, very rasic in their content. These were given in the 10th canto by Shukadeva, by Vyasadeva, especially in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Amongst all of the Vedic literature, Bhagavatam is considered to be the sweetest and the most nectarian and the most juicy. Each of the verse has that, imminent juice in it, if we understand and try to relish. So this the highest in these Gopi Gita, those the songs that are sung by gopis in separation from Lord Kṛṣṇa, when during the time of Rasa dance, at the time of Rasa Leela, Kṛṣṇa disappears from the dance, and the gopis were left alone, and the gopis were searching after Kṛṣṇa. That's when they sing, and when they're singing the Gopi Gita, there's one beautiful verse that they sing about Kṛṣṇa Katha. I'll tell you, this is a very, very interesting interpretation of this verse. And I will tell you the verse. And this verse can be interpreted in 2 ways. Okay. The one way is to understand it from the sadhaka level. And another way is to understand it from the gopis' point of view. Yeah, that is a very rasik level. Okay, so first I will tell you the understanding from the sadhaka level. I'll tell you what the verse is. Tava kathamritam. Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham Śravaṇamangalam Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam bhuvi grinanti bhurida jana. The gopis are searching for Kṛṣṇa in that middle of the night, and they're singing this song in separation from Kṛṣṇa. What are they saying? Tava kathamritam. So the sadhaka's understanding is Tava. Tava means Kṛṣṇa. Oh, my dear Kṛṣṇa, your kathamritam. Katha means what? It has 2 meanings. Katha means the words of Kṛṣṇa, or it also means the glories of Kṛṣṇa. Like words of Kṛṣṇa means like Bhagavad Gita, and the glories of Kṛṣṇa means Bhagavatam, narrations of Kṛṣṇa's pastimes. Yeah, Amritam. So your katha is Amritam. Amritam means it's pure nectar, it's ambrosia. For whom? Tapta Jivanam. That means tapta. Tapta comes from the word tapa. Tapa means heat. Tapta means, being fried in the heat, or in other words, roasted. Jivanam means for the life. So for those jivas who are roasted in the material existence, your katha is like amrita. Yeah, tava kathamritam tapta jivanam. Kavibhiriditam. And the same thing is iditam means it has been stamped, or it has been proclaimed by kavi. Kavis means the great poets or philosophers or transcendentalists. They're also saying the same. Kalmashapaham. That means kalmasha means all the inauspiciousness. Apaham means destroys. So your katha is, it's so auspicious that it destroys all the kalmasha, all the impurities. Kavibhiriditam kalmashapaham. Shravanamangalam, it brings in all auspiciousness for the listeners. Śrīmad-Atatam. Atatam means expands. Expands Śrīmad. Śrīmad means the opulences. It expands the glories of your devotees. Bhuvi grinantiye bhuridajana. Bhuvi means on the earth, and grinantiye means bhuridajana. The bhuri means very, very magnanimous. Yeah, very large. So what this last line means is that those are the real magnanimous souls who actually take your katha and go everywhere and speak about it. because they are doing the greatest good to the humanity, and all glories to such magnanimous souls. Bhurida jana. So this is the meaning of the verse from the sadhaka point of view. So, and within this verse, there's a very encoded message that the gopis are trying to give Kṛṣṇa. And what is this encoded message? Another meaning to the same verse. Yeah. So the gopis are saying, Tava katha mritam. That is, Tava, my dear Kṛṣṇa. They're in a highly complaining mood. Okay. Say, Tava katha mritam. You know, now, katha mritam, is that means the nectarian story. Yeah, katha and amritam. But they have split it in a different way. Katha and mritam. That means one who hears about your story is mrita, is dead. So gopis are complaining, Kṛṣṇa, if somebody starts hearing about you or from you, they are dead. You know why they're dead? Because they become so attracted to you, they become so crazy about you, that they no longer bother anything about their family lives or their own possessions or anything of this world. Yeah, and they just madly chase after you. They're just dead for life. That's why I say Tava katha mritam. And tapta jivanam. Tapta jivanam, how they have decoded it or encoded it. Without that katha, they are roasted. You know, they're fried in the heat of that separation. And kavibhiriditam. And kavibhiriditam, they told in a very sarcastic way. And you know, all these kavis, they say the poets, that means who exaggerate, have these exaggerated your glories, but in fact, your glories and your katha is only killing us. Yeah, kalmashapaham. Kalmasha means here they translated into suffering, and apaham, they have translated as increasing. It is increasing our suffering. This is the way of adjusting Sanskrit grammar. Actually, the same thing can mean two things. Yeah, even in Nectar of Devotion, we interpret niyamagraha and agraha in two ways. So kalmashapaham, they have meant it to be, it is increasing our suffering. And they finally concluded, Shravanamangalam Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Śrīmad means the gopis are saying, Shri is Srimati Radharani, Madanvitam. Mada means her madness is increasing. And, you know, and that's what is is being explained in the various scriptures. And bhuvi grinantiye bhurida janan. And this is the ultimate understanding. And they said, the bhurida janan, those people who are propagating about your pastimes, they are actually moving about this world with a sword. Bhurida. Da means actually, one of the meaning in Sanskrit means, it means to murder or, you know, to kill. So the moving about this word of Kṛṣṇa Katha, to kill what? To kill all their material attachments. And they are just sending them towards you, to be crazy about you. And in the process, they're getting roasted because they're in the middle. They have not yet reached you and you're not in the vision. They have not yet met you, but they have lost taste for material life. That is why tapta jivanam. So, you know, this is how the gopis are in a heavily complaining mood. This is their expression of their intense love for Kṛṣṇa. So the same verse understood in two different ways. You know, this is the beauty of Bhagavatam. It narrates how a sadhaka can understand it and how the gopis, out of their intense love of complaining, have understood Kṛṣṇa, have understood this particular verse, have expressed their feelings through this verse. Actually, Kṛṣṇa loves the gopis so much that he says that I'm not as much satisfied with all the Vedic hymns that the Brahmanas are singing with the perfect meters, as much as the chastisements of these gopis. He's more pleased with the chastisement of gopis than the Vedic hymns that are sung for him. So that is how much Kṛṣṇa gives for love. So this is a complaint of all the gopis. So this is the beauty of Kṛṣṇa Katha. The beauty of Kṛṣṇa Katha is that it brings in all auspiciousness to one's life, to the extent of, you know, developing one's inherent love for Kṛṣṇa. Chaitanya Charitamrita says that, you know, Shravanadi Nitya Siddha Kṛṣṇa-prema sadhya kabunoi Shravanadi Suddha chitte koriye udai. That is, Pure love for Krishna is inherent within every living entity. It is not an artificial imposition. Love for Krishna is there within the heart and soul of every living entity, in whichever body they are. Shravanadi Shuddha Chitte Koriyodai. Simply by hearing submissively from the right source, this love awakens. So that hearing of Krishna Katha can bring in the true auspiciousness. There's a beautiful verse in the 10th canto which says, Brahman Krishna Katha Punyan Madhvi Lokamalapaha Konu Tripyeta Śrīmānaha Sritadnyo Nityanutana. So Krishna Katha is so beautiful. Madhvi Loka Malapaha. Madhvi is very madhurya, very sweet. Loka Malapaha. That means it actually, Loka Mala, all the contaminations of this material world are wiped away. Kona Tripyeta Śrīmānaha. And the beauty of the Krishna Katha is, the more you hear it, the more you want it. You're never satiated. You want to hear it more and more and more. Shrutadnyo Nityanutana. That means for those who, sincere listeners, it is Nityanutana. It is ever fresh, ever new. So this is the beauty of Krishna Katha. This is the beauty of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. That is, more you hear it, the more we relish it. This beautiful Krishna Katha is packaged in 12 cantos of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And very soon we are going to start a Bhagavatam study circle where we will systematically go through the study. It's vast, but we will try to have a brief overview initially, and later on we will get into the details of it as a part of a Bhakti Vibe, of course, after your Bhakti Shastri course. But right now we will start with the Bhagavatam study circle. So yeah. Then coming to the final aspect, how to cultivate this taste. Yeah, Bhagavatam is full of relish, so much of taste, so much of nectar. So how should we cultivate this taste actively? So there is a beautiful systematic understanding of how to cultivate this state. It is given in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It tells us about, there are 4 systematic processes. First is Shravanam. Second is Mananam. Third is Nididhyasanam. Yeah, Nididhyasanam. And fourth is Vandanam. These are 4 ways of hearing Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or approaching Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So what are these 4 ways? 4 steps: Shravanam, Mananam, Nididhyasanam, and fourth is Vandanam. So what is Shravanam? Shravanam is the regular academic hearing. That is, we hear, we write down, make notes, gather information, and we know a lot of things. Like, this is university learning, how you generally listen to anything in your classrooms at college. This is called Shravanam. That is hearing for making notes, information, gathering knowledge. This is first step. The second step is Mananam. Mananam means reflection. This is the next step, and this is a very important step. And most of the students do not go to this step. They stop at the first step. So this is where, these days first step is also very difficult of attentive hearing. But then that's not what actually gives you the taste for Bhagavatam. Okay, first step is Shravanam, that is being attentive while hearing. The next step is Mananam, reflection. Reflecting is very, very important. Okay, this is what has been told in the class today. So how can I apply it? What is that point? What is the story trying to convey? What is this particular pastime of the Lord trying to convey? What is this attitude of the behavior, attitude of this devotee in this particular pastime? What made the Lord be so pleased with this devotee? How this devotee has taken shelter. This is reflection. Yeah, that means take some time. Just like how, sometimes if you see a cow, whenever you give it grass, what does it do? It just chews everything. Without chewing, it just swallows everything, right? Because a lot of grass is given in it, and it just swallows everything. So later, after some time, it sits peacefully, and then it brings it out. You know what is the process called? Does anybody remember? We've learned it in science. What is the process?
Rumination, Mataji.
Excellent. Who said that?
Jyotsna.
Jyotsna, yeah, the process is called rumination. It brings out all the curd and then it starts peacefully chewing. First it swallows, just gallop whatever is available. Then later peacefully sit and bring it out and then start chewing. This process is called rumination. Yeah. So mananam is something like that, process of reflecting, rumination. Then the third step is nididhyasanam. What is nididhyasanam? This is a very, very, very key and important part. This is contemplation. Contemplation means, how do I apply this in my own life? How can I live this particular quality? How do I upgrade my life in such a way that I can accommodate these teachings and practice these teachings in my own life? How can I bring to life and see the truth of these teachings? How can I adjust my timetable? How can I adjust my priorities in such a way that I can truly see these teachings come to life in my own life? Very important aspect, nididhyasanam. Only very, very sincere students actually go to this level, nididhyasanam. And if you go to this level, you're profusely blessed. This is a sincere endeavor. Yeah. So this third part is contemplation. And fourth aspect is vandanam. So vandanam is now the dependence on the Supreme Lord Krishna. That means offering sincere prayers. My dear Lord, I sincerely want to apply these teachings in my life and kindly guide me and offer, express the dependency on Krishna. And Krishna will make those realizations last in your life and that you're applying them truly in your own life. So these are the 4 steps to actually relish the subject matter of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam truly in one's heart and develop that taste. So first step is the Shravanam. Shravanam is just like, bringing the food to the mouth. You know what you're eating. You can just see it, but not yet taste it. Yeah. Then Mananam is something like putting that food in the mouth and then chewing it. And Nididhyasanam is actually swallowing it in a way that the actual nourishment goes into the body and, it goes into the stomach, it goes into the intestines, and then the nutrition reaches the body and feel nourished. All this is accomplished by Nididhyasana. So at the first level, we're just seeing what it is. The food is just brought in front of the mouth. But one should actually take it in, chew it, and also swallow it to actually get the nourishment from it. So is Bhagavatam, or so is any class that you hear. If you truly want to derive nourishment from it or develop taste from it, this is the process that you have to follow. Many times we see, right, we and many of us together attend so many sessions, or many of us read Bhagavatam. But why is that some devotees develop a lot of taste for it, a lot of excitement for it, a lot of insight into it, a lot of desire to apply it? It's just that it's not that, there are some superpowers. It's just that one is making that conscious effort to go through all these processes with sincerity. Okay, so we all should pray for such sincerity and strive for such sincerity. And when we go through these 4 processes, we will also, by the mercy of Lord Krishna, begin to relish Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and develop a taste. And if we develop a taste for Bhagavatam, you're done with this world. Yes, thank you all very much. It's been my great pleasure to go through these glories of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. As I said, I'm not qualified. I have shared whatever I heard from my teachers and whatever I have personally read. And I can tell you my journey through Bhagavatam has been so amazing. Like, I have completed Bhagavatam much before my daughter was born. It took me a few years actually to read the 12 cantos, that is all the 18 books. And every page of Bhagavatam, I can tell you, it's such nectar. It's so relishable. It's so amazing. It's the sweetest thing I've ever read. So it's you have to taste it to understand what I'm trying to say. So I really wish that you all, begin to read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam soon. Thank you all very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So any questions? I can take one quickly. Yes, anybody has any questions, clarifications?
Hey Krishna Mataji, Dandavat Pranam.
Yes.
Like, can we directly start reading Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? I mean, I have heard that Ramayana and Mahabharata, you need to read these basic things firstly.
Can we directly read Bhagavatam? Okay. It depends. Like if you're under a teacher, you can certainly read. The teacher will guide you how to read it. And of course, even on your own, if you want to read it, you can certainly start, provided you have had some basic understanding. There is a, I think sent you the list of books of Prabhupada, right? The order in which they have to be read. First, you might have had to read some basic books of Prabhupada, small books of Prabhupada. Then we go through the course of reading Bhagavad Gita, Isopanishad, Nectar of Devotion, Nectar of Instruction, and then it is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. But that doesn't mean we have to stop ourselves until then. Bhagavatam reading can happen simultaneously because Bhagavatam classes go on regularly every day in the temple hall. So as long as you're hearing Bhagavatam, it can happen at any point of time. But personal study can be done under the guidance of a teacher. Yeah, but if you're eager to study, there's nothing that can stop. You can go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. I will stop here. Thank you all very much. If you have any question. Somebody wrote, as you mentioned in the beginning, the session is real juicy, like especially my takeaway, the last 4 steps. Oh, Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. I'm glad you liked it. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. We will end here.